This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread.
I want to discuss a topic that I am finding many Christians rarely explore, and that is fasting. I have once participated in a group fast and found it to be a very spiritually rewarding experience. Fasting is abstaining from physical nourishment. The early saints were given a command to fast as a day of atonement. In Leviticus chapter 23, verse 26, the Father instructs the children of Israel to rest and fast for a day. I have found that most Christians do not fast because they believe this was a requirement for the early saints. So I am thankful for ministers who promote and encourage it, because it has been proven to be a way to position our hearts to receive more of the Father's grace. I also believe that Jesus expected Christians to fast even though it was not a requirement. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 16 through 17, he taught the disciples that their fast is to be seen only by the Father. He did not want them to be fasting to receive eye service from men. He wanted his followers to do it from their heart and approach the Father with humility. In Acts chapter 13, verse 2, according to Scriptures, the apostles fasted and prayed before being sent out to preach. So it is proven that fasting and praying is a practice that every Christian should observe. Because fasting requires no food or drink, it is important to consult with your doctor if you have any health conditions. But I have found two types of fasting in the Bible, and that is a partial and full. A partial is eating certain types of food and drink. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 3, the prophet fasted for 21 days, abstaining from meat and wine. According to Matthew chapter 4, Jesus did not eat food or drink for 40 days and 40 nights. When I fasted 21 days, 18 days partial, and 3 days a full fast, where I met with the other members of the group to end our fast with praise and worship. However, any time spending quality time with the Father fasting will enhance your relationship with Him. During your fast, you should expect a lot. You should expect to receive divine guidance from the Father. In Acts chapter 14, verse 23, it describes Paul had fasted about some decisions he made in leading the churches he started. In Judges chapter 20, verse 26 through 28, the Israelites sought the Father through fasting when they had been defeated in the battle by the tribe of Benjamin. You can fast for more intensity in your prayers like David. He fasted and prayed for the child that he had fathered with Bathsheba. David knew he had sinned, but his fast was not to restore fellowship with God. Apparently, restoration had already been taken care of. His prayers in 2 Samuel chapter 12 was for the life of the child. Though the father did not grant his request, David was satisfied and content after his season of prayer and fasting. He had moved past the point of blaming the Father and placing his trust in Him for the outcome, which is why fasting should not be done to try to manipulate a situation, because the Father does check your motives, and if they are not correct, your fast will not be effective, because you may not be satisfied with the outcome. You can fast for the Father's protection. In Ezra chapter 8, verse 21 through 23, Ezra prayed for the Father's protection over his countrymen as they journeyed back to Jerusalem. He could have entreated the king for soldiers and cavalrymen, but he had already proclaimed that the Father would care for them. Now he was asking the Father to show himself strong on behalf of the Israelites and to help raise a good testimony before the enemy. You can also fast as a sign of mourning. The prophet Nehemiah heard about the destruction of Jerusalem and was led to cry, fast, and pray. This fasting was because of grief over the sin of his people before the Lord. He knew that the Father was punishing Israel for their sins. Nehemiah mourned and confessed before the Lord. Sin had caused a pain that prayer could not express. We should consider that, considering the circumstances that our country is in today. During your fast, you must worship. Along with humility before the Father, fasting can be a way to worship Him. David said in Psalm 51 that the Father is more interested in a humble and contrite heart than He is in fasting and sacrifices. This is not saying that we don't need to fast. Rather, it is saying that fasting without the right attitude does not touch the Father's heart. Then you can fast for spiritual strength. Jesus demonstrated that perfectly in Luke chapter 4, while Jesus had faced temptation from Satan. I advise you to read that chapter. In Mark chapter 9, verse 29, he shows that the disciples needed to have the power from the Father, which only comes from fasting. And Matthew chapter 17 through 20 and 21 says that fasting and prayer coupled with faith in God can work spiritual miracles. And finally, years ago when I was seeking the will of the Father for my life, while I kept working and pursuing what I needed to do to survive, He somehow had me desiring to do what He wanted me to do. When I look back, I am doing what I really want to do, and that is to serve Him and His children. I can recall the day that I agreed to dedicate my time to the Father, and I approached it while seeking Him with all my heart, while I continued to fast and pray, and it led me to an early retirement as well. I want to encourage you to consider my testimony, tips, and the scriptures, of course. I also want to invite you to join me in a fast and to seek His divine protection and guidance for all what we're encountering in our world today. Please check my calendar on my website and social media pages. I want to thank you for visiting King's Kid Outreach Ministry. Please continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Israel and all around the world. Peace and love.